Okay, so she's not here yet. So we'll go ahead and offer the invocation at this point. This is September the 9th, 2021, pre-agenda meeting or special meeting. And Alderman Miller, if you don't mind, offering the invocation, please.
Okay. Let's bow our heads, please. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for being present with us today, looking after us, guiding us, and giving us the leadership that we desperately need in this time. Protect all our citizens, our board members, everybody around the world from this dreaded COVID disease that we're having right now. Look after us, protect us, and hopefully we can get through this epidemic. We ask it in your name. Amen.
All right, everyone rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag and to the republic for which it stands, liberty and justice for all.
Okay, now at this point, I don't know how it works, but I'm going to turn it back over to the mayor who's on Zoom. So we're going to go into receiving updates with a community conservation assistance program from Cindy Seyfert. Jonathan, is there anything you want to say to Cindy before she gets going?
Well, it does look like Miss Mayor Pro Tem Sechrist has joined us now. So we do have all but Miss Sledge with us. So we will proceed. We do have Cindy Seyfert here to give us an update on our CCAP program project on 17th Street. And Cindy, we appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight. And with that, we will turn it over to you and also Joel Taylor, if there's any input that he needs to provide.
Hold on just a minute. Get my computer up. Okay, last time we had talked about, and my battery is running low. I've got somebody bringing my charger to me, but we should be able to make it till they get here. We talked about the left-hand side where the stream is, opening it up to an open channel. I don't know, can y'all, how do I switch over? Oh, he's switching me over. Anyway, I went in and done that, and let me, hold on, let's,
You try to use this?
oh, did mine? Oh, I thought it, oh, it's a Toshiba. I thought it was connecting to the screen. Oh my God, did it die that fast? All right. Well, y'all want to do a couple other things while my charger gets here? Did y'all have anything else on the agenda? Or,
Oh, yeah.
Sure. Let me see if that'll fit mine. I don't think it will. I usually have 20 minutes. No, that won't fit mine. Mine's around. Well, it'll be here in a few minutes. Sorry.
All right, Mayor, Cindy's having a little technical difficulties. If we can go on with the other part of the agenda.
Let's proceed. Yep, let's proceed with other portions of setting our agenda for next Tuesday, and then we'll circle back once she gets powered back up. All right. So with that, you have before you a proposed agenda for the upcoming meeting next Tuesday night. So we'll walk through that real quickly. I guess one question I have, do we have somebody that is willing to lead the invocation on Tuesday night? All right, Mr. Miller has raised his hand. Thank you for volunteering. I'll have you down. And then we have one recognition that you have already seen the draft for, and that is a recognition for Mr. Ronnie Smith. He'll be with us on Tuesday, thanking him and his Friends of Rowan organization for all of the financial support that they've given to our Yadkin River Trailhead project. So that is one item that we will consider. Are there other recognitions from the board that you would individually like to make at this time? We can add those and make sure we have those on the agenda. All right, hearing none. Peter, are there any on behalf of the town that you would, that we need to consider?
No additional recognitions, but by way of procedure, I would recommend, we do have item 16 on the agenda that is related to the recognition for Mr. Smith, and would recommend putting that action in tandem with this recognition item.
I would agree, and I would recommend that we do that up front. However, we need to do that immediately following adoption of the agenda. So that being the case, I would propose to the board that we move that specific recognition down below, immediately following adoption of the agenda. And then we will also at that time consider that ordinance in order to make that recognition. Is the board agreeable to that?
Sure.
That's fine. Good.
That also means he doesn't have to stay the entire meeting to be able to be recognized. Okay. All right. Very good. Any other recognitions, Ms. Sledge? Welcome. Good to see you. Do you have any recognitions that we need to be aware of for next Tuesday?
No, sir, I don't believe so.
Okay. And Mayor Pro Tem, I know you're on by Zoom. Do you have any? All right. Looks like you're on mute, so I'm assuming that you don't. If you do, just let me know.
Unmute. Now, can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am, we can.
I'm still new with this Zoom stuff, but no, I don't have any other recognitions.
Okay. Very good. Well, we will move on then and consider any adjustments or adoption of the agenda at this point. We have several things that we have on the agenda, and I believe that there are a few more that we would like to add. And so if we could get those on the table now, and we can determine then where those would be appropriately added as we go through the agenda. Peter, I believe you had an item, is that right, that you wanted to add for Tuesday?
Yes, Mayor and members of the board, we have received a draft agreement from the North Carolina Department of Natural and Cultural Resources for the police services, security services we provide at the North Carolina Transportation Museum. This is an agreement we've had for many years. It's up for renewal, and we might recommend this could be in a consent agenda item, but the only changes from the current agreement to this one go back to what happened in the spring related to some changes after the fire at on one of the rail cars. In our current agreement, there's text that reads that there will be a comprehensive walkthrough and 5 to 6 drive-through visits per night. The museum suggested limiting that to 5 drive-throughs per night, and then they also back in March, in response to the suspicious fire that happened, there were twice a week daytime patrols that allowed the benefit of daylight to check train cars and to better observe evidence of suspicious activity. And the museum recommended that this be reflected in the updated agreement with a 1 day per week daytime patrol of 30 minutes in duration on Tuesdays to check train cars and observe the grounds in daylight. And so those were incorporated in the draft that's provided. And again, this would be an agreement to continue those security services for 1 year. And of course, the state of North Carolina provides funding to the town for those services.
All right, thank you very much. And so at that point,
We can get a copy of that draft agreement before the meeting on Tuesday.
It's
Is it here?
it's there in front of you.
Okay. Okay, so, all right, so it's gonna be, okay.
So that being the case, my suggestion would be in lieu of putting it on the consent agenda, that we would actually go ahead and put it as a separate item on the agenda. And the board may choose, after you've had a chance to review it, you may choose to make a motion on Tuesday to move it to the consent agenda. But that way we can have it as a separate item, since you're just now getting that today, to have a chance to review it. And if there are no issues with it, you can choose to add that to the consent agenda on Tuesday night, or you can hold it as a separate item. Is the board in agreement with that?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay. That being the case, I would suggest that we actually put that as item number 16, since we'll be moving item number 16, the resolution in recognition of Mr. Smith. We'll be moving that up front. I would suggest that we put this particular item as item 16. Is the board in agreement?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, very good. Are there other items that need to be added to the agenda? Ms. Sledge, I believe you have one that you would like us to add for discussion and consideration next Tuesday. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
Okay. And that is a resolution for non-discrimination. And I would propose that we add that as item 17. Is the board in agreement with considering that as item 17?
Sounds good.
Well, you have a 17 now, so you want to make that 16A or something?
No, we'll make that 17, and all the others will subsequently switch numbers downward.
And I brought 10 copies with me tonight for that, so that the board members could have a copy of the proposal.
Okay. Very good. Are there other items that we need to consider for addition to the agenda on Tuesday night? All right. Hearing none, we'll move on. We will have public comment. I do know we have one individual that will be coming. I believe, Ms. Sechrist, that we have an individual coming to speak on behalf of the schools in the area. That is
Yeah.
a school parent liaison, correct? Crystal McCray?
Yes. That's correct, sir.
All right, thank you. And then we will entertain any other public comment, whether in person or write-in at that time too. Okay. All right, the next item will be our consent agenda. So as we go through these next items, just keep in mind anything you want to add to the consent agenda. We'll note that tonight, and Stacy will update the agenda, and we'll have those as consent agenda items on Tuesday. So with that, approval of minutes, we have 4 sets of minutes. That'd be July 28th, August the 5th, August the 9th, and August the 10th. Are there any comments on those at this point? And if there are not, would you like to move those to the consent agenda?
Comment?
Yes.
On minutes of August 5th, in the section that says consider appointment of Joshua James HPC, about 4 lines from the bottom. I'm questioning if in fact we had actually said that the procedure for considering applicants was that the application is received, and then the next section says pass to town planner, and then planner sets an interview with the applicant to meet with the chair and planner, and then if the chair would like to make a recommendation, the interview is set. The section that says pass to town planner and planner sets an interview with the applicant to meet with chair and planner. I don't know if we have agreed on that at the last meeting, at that meeting. In other words, I'm questioning why does it need to go through the town planner, period?
Well, okay, so again, we can visit the process. These are minutes, so we need to discuss what was actually, we need to make sure that the minutes reflect what was actually discussed at that meeting. So does the board recollect the specific discussion on that?
process by saying that, when the person submitted an application, it went to the clerk, who then gave it to him. And then he and the chair of the committee, interviewed the applicant. So this was the process. I think he explained to us about how it had been happening.
That is my recollection as well. And so we need to make sure that the minutes correctly reflect that that was his description of the process. Because Mr. Bish, you are right. We directed some additional steps that needed to happen with basically the candidate being taken, vetted, the application being vetted, and then taken before that particular appointed board to review the candidate and then make a recommendation to the Board of Aldermen.
Perhaps the clarification needs to be where it says, interview is set with the committee. It should say interview is set with the appointed board. Maybe that would clarify.
Well, it says here that Mr. Harris explained the process as following.
Okay.
And then, down below, it says the Board of Aldermen are seeking clarification and a consistent process for, the ensuring of the equality for the committee members. So it was just a recollection of what occurred. It wasn't to set in stone what everybody decided. So it's just notating how Cal explained the process to be, as Alderwoman Sledge said.
Yeah, and I guess my only comment would be, we do need to make sure that the minutes correctly reflect the board's direction of the process going forward too. And that
I
was
don't
that the
remember
committee being.
any finality in regards to the involvement of the town planner on applicants to various committees of the board. And why my understanding was the applicant would come in and would be received by the town clerk. The town clerk would notify the appropriate committee chairperson that there was an application for appointment to that board. And the chairperson of that board or committee would contact the applicant, arrange an interview and with the committee, and no separate private interview, but an interview with the entire committee at one of their sessions, possibly at the end of their normal session. And then after that, the recommendation would come from that particular committee to the Board of Aldermen. That's the way I understand it.
Bob
And
said
that was, Mr. Bish, that was what we as a board directed the planner to be the process going forward. I believe my understanding from the minutes, that is reflecting prior to us directing Mr. Harris along those lines. That is a documentation of what he explained to us, the process that they had been using.
Okay, so
but
what?
Let me
okay.
ask a question. Since we're talking here about the committees being the HPC and the Community Appearance Committees, those are two committees that Kyle has some oversight to. Is that correct?
That's
Well,
correct.
whether he has oversight to it or not, but there's also planning and zoning. So my understanding there was no need to have any additional involvement by a separate entity, that the applicant, once the application is received, then the further contact would be between the chairperson of that committee and the applicant as to when the interview takes place, or interview or presentation to that particular committee, and then the notification from the committee to the board, recommendation from the committee to the board. There was no third party involved, to my understanding. I mean, it's up to how the board wants to see it, but I just don't see any need to have a third party involvement in that. I mean,
So Mr. Bish, my recollection, and I would appreciate input from the rest of the board, is that we never did specifically exclude Mr. Harris from the process. I'm of the opinion that it is important that he be in the process, as all of our previous town planners have been when it comes to the applications and that process, and making sure that the appropriate boards get those applications for consideration. He is a member of our staff. And as such, the liaison to each of those boards. So I don't view him as a third party. I view him as an integral part of each of those three appointed boards. And my recollection is we never specifically directed him not to be involved in the process, but what we did direct is exactly as you say, that the process going forward be that once those applications are received, that then they are vetted through the full appointed board for their consideration and ultimate recommendation or not recommendation to our board for appointment.
I think Kyle's, the purpose of him being in the mix is to provide reference, for the applicant, as well as the chair of the, whatever committee.
I would
So,
offer,
answer questions.
the main role I'd say is the facilitative process of developing the agenda for the board and making sure that this gets on it and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Oh, see, it's the pleasure of the board. I just don't remember the minutes reading that way. And my only interest in this is somewhere down the road between now and the end of the year, I plan to come out with some suggestions for ethical codes and standards for the board that they need to consider. So just in that light, I'm more or less saying that the third party to me is not necessary for any preview, any separate interview by a third party before it gets to the committee that this person is going to be working with. That's all. But as far as just correcting the minutes, my understanding is what I thought it would be, that it goes directly from the town clerk to the committee chairperson, and then the committee chair handles it from there. But it's whatever the board decides to do.
Well, and again, at issue are the minutes. That's what we're discussing. The process can be a completely separate issue that we take up at another time. And sounds like is appropriate to do so because we obviously still have some confusion or miscommunication on what our direction and process is going forward. But again, what we need to do now is determine what needs to be reflected in the minutes based on what actually happened at that particular meeting and the discussion that was held.
We made Mr. Mayor, what if we made an amendment to these minutes to say the Board of Aldermen are seeking clarification and a consistent process for the ensuring of equality to the committees, and strike the rest of it? And don't talk about the preference for process, or to say that, the board.
Well, except that you're not reflecting what happened
Well,
in the minute. But
yeah, well, I guess
I didn't know
that's
if you
true,
had
too.
if you have the copy of the recording for
Oh, yeah.
for that night's meeting.
We do.
Do you?
Oh, yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay.
So here's my recommendation is that we hold the August 5th, 2021 meeting minutes for consideration next month. That will give our staff an opportunity to review the recording and make sure that we've correctly reflected those. Does that work?
August 5th meeting. Minutes.
August 5th.
Mhm.
Yes. And so then that being the case, are there any other questions or comments on July 28th, August 9th, or August 10th?
Just as a matter of record, when I review these minutes, if I have any questions about it, I typically go back and look at those, look at that recording and compare my notes to what I'm actually hearing again. So I don't recall whether I did that on this or not, but just as a matter of record, I do.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sledge. So besides the August 5th minutes, which we're going to hold to next month for consideration, those other three, is the board in agreement to put those on the consent agenda?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
Good to it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
For your awareness, we do have the power issue with the
Yeah.
computer resolved now. Just for your awareness.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and work through the rest of this since we are on a roll. And we should be wrapping this up pretty quickly. Next item is item 8. That's considering adopting a resolution to declare a 2004 Ford Crown Victoria as surplus property. And again, my understanding from the agenda packet material is because this particular vehicle was given to us by Landis several years ago. And it is being recommended by our staff mechanic that due to ongoing maintenance issues, this be declared as surplus property. Are there any questions on this particular one? Is this an item that you want to hold on the regular agenda or move to consent agenda?
Consent.
Move to consent.
Okay.
For housing,
You never
just a
know.
question. There are people
Hopefully
that
not
live
in
in smaller
Spencer.
things.
We hope not.
Next item is consider adopting resolution 21-019 for grant opportunities for the Yadkin River Trailhead. And basically, this is a resolution that the board supports applying for an additional grant opportunity through the Carolina Thread Trail. And so with that, is this an item that you want to hold and receive an update from Joe Morris on, or is it an item you want to place on the consent agenda for approval?
Consent.
Consent.
Consent?
Consent.
Okay.
Is that okay with y'all?
I'd rather hear it.
Well,
All right.
I'd rather hear it.
Yeah, I
I
would
think
too.
it's changed.
I'd like to
I'd
see
like to
what the stage is.
Yeah,
All right, no
I think
problem.
we should.
Okay, we will get an update for that then. We'll hold that. We'll have our departmental reports. Peter, anything at this point we need to be aware of with our departmental reports? Anything you need to update us on tonight?
No, sir.
All right.
There is a date correction that needs to be made on that, the resolution of authorizing staff to apply. It says with the successful award of additional grant funds, it may be possible to break ground on the project in spring of 2022 with completion the fall of 2020.
Oh, yeah.
2022. The fall.
Is
All
it
right.
Will it do in the fall of 2022 or will it take longer than,
Fall of 2022.
okay,
That needs to be.
Yeah, it's about a 6-month construction period.
okay.
Okay, so we'll make that change and get everybody updated copies. Anything on the town manager report tonight, Peter?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Then in addition, we've got several liens for properties relative to abatement of overgrown lots. We typically see these each month. Again, this is just a procedural thing in order for us to be able to file these liens with the clerk of court. And so do we want to hold those on the agenda or move those specific items under number 12 to consent agenda?
I do have a question about one of those. Under tab 13 in my folder, there is an additional notice of lien letter, and it has a different case number. It's for the same gentleman and the same property, but it has a different case number. So my question is there a second one that should have been included in these other notice of lien?
I wonder if some of that could have been left over from last
Leftover?
month paperwork by chance. I don't,
I don't
are the
know.
dates aligning?
Well, it says June 8th, 2021 on the one under tab 12. Actually, it's tab 12.
I do not have anything in my book past tab 11, or past tab 10, I'm sorry.
So this one is just a leftover, but it does have a different case number.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. So consent agenda for the liens?
Yeah.
Fine.
Yes.
Okay. The next item is considering an ordinance declaring a public nuisance for 411 South Iredale. This is the property that we've been working to remediate, trying to get the owner to remediate for several months now. And apparently those efforts have kind of come to a halt. My suggestion would be that we hold this on the regular agenda item so we can get an update from code enforcement on this particular item. Is that okay with the board?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay. The next item is a budget ordinance, 21-017, and this is particularly is focused on the insurance reimbursement for the lightning strike at the fire department. And it's basically just accepting the insurance reimbursement and being able to then move that to offset the cost that have been incurred for repairing that damage. Is the board okay with putting that on consent agenda?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. The next item is attachment 9. Item 15 is considering a budget amendment ordinance 21-018. And that is to update the budget to recognize the revenues received for the additional monies of $250,000 from the Friends of Rowan that we were notified of last month at our meeting. And is that an item that the board wishes to put on the consent agenda as well?
Sure.
I think we need to bring it up so people can hear it.
Well, yeah, Mr. Miller, we will in our recognition of Mr. Smith.
Well, just as long as the public hears it again, I think the more they hear it, the better educated they are.
Right, agreed.
And I have more envelopes from Mr. Smith. I saw him in another event and mentioned that I had misplaced my original envelope he gave me. So he gave me more, and they are continuing to match contributions, even though they've already done the 250,000 for any additional contributions that come in. They're still matching those dollar for dollar. So I have more envelopes, which are on my front seat, if anybody's interested in having one,
Okay.
2, 3, 4, whatever.
All right, so is this consent agenda or holding on a regular agenda?
Hold it.
Hold it even with the recognition that we're going to be making of Mr. Smith?
On the consent agenda.
But since you're gonna recognize it, at first, I think let's go ahead and put it on the consent.
Okay.
My only thing was bring it, make sure everybody heard it again. So since we're doing that first meeting, let's put it on the consent.
Okay, very good. All right. So then item 16 now, we've moved up. That's the resolution in recognition of Mr. Smith. Ms. Sledge, I think, have you communicated the minor correction that needed to be made on that?
Actually, I have not.
Okay.
The, in the resolution itself, at the very bottom of the last whereas, it says the Piedmont Legacy Trail, and legacy should have a capital L.
All right, thank you, Ms. Sledge. So we'll get that correction made before we make the presentation to Mr. Smith. All right, and so now the new item 16 will be our North Carolina Transportation Museum policing agreement. And then number 17 will be the non-discrimination resolution that Ms. Sledge has prepared. And then we will receive requests and comments by the mayor and the board and executive session if necessary. Is there anything else at this point that needs to be added to next Tuesday's agenda?
I have one question that it occurred to me, sometime last year, we talked about the second bus stop shelter that was gonna go out at the front of, what was Park Plaza? We haven't gotten that, have we? Have we heard anything more about it? It was ordered, I believe.
Let's, Ms. Sledge, let's hold that question for Tuesday night. And we can actually get an update during our Public Works Departmental report.
And this way
Is that
too,
okay?
give Joel a chance to prepare for that question.
Yeah.
Just like the question I'm gonna have reference to the manager on the iPads that the board was supposed to be getting at this budget and we haven't received since now September. That was said that you were gonna have, and we haven't had. But I'll ask that Tuesday night if you want.
All right, anything else specifically that we need to add to the agenda? All right, hearing none. Our agenda then is set for Tuesday night. Thanks for your time in considering that. And now, Ms. Seifert, we will turn it back over to you.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
All right, I'll wait till he gets it up there on the screen. But we had talked about last time, since the two 36-inch pipes on the left side, and this is facing downstream or facing towards the pond, if you're looking down 17th Street. Opening it up to basically daylighting the stream so that water can get into it from the road, and also just to act as extra storage for the bigger storm events while it tries to get through the driveway culverts. You had asked if we could use the cost share money for that, and I checked with Tom Hill, and he said that he'd want to see the plans if y'all decided to go that way, but he was 99% sure that the sections that were daylighted that could come out of that money, but the pipes going back underneath the driveways and putting the driveways back after we tore them out, the concrete, that could not be covered. And I broke up the cost of that, and I've estimated, because it's about 500 linear feet of stream, and so the stream work I've estimated at about $45,000. And the reason it's high is because I don't know that there'll be bed material there when we pull the pipes out. So if there's not, I've got to plan on bringing in some stone to make the bottom of the bed. Now, there was a stream there at some point before the road was built. So if it was right there where we're digging at, then there should be base material there. But cost-wise, I had to go ahead and assume that it's not going to be there. So if you wanted to use the money towards that and not do some of the areas on down at the bottom, you can use the money, or we'll get it approved by him. But he said he was 99%, as long as he looked at it. And, of course, all the neighbors, all the homeowners will have to sign off on it, to use the cost share funds for it. And for the 401 permits, I have to have everybody's signature to act as their authorized agent to submit the plans on their property on their behalf. So, but anyway, I wanted to go through it and show you what it would look like, and then y'all can decide if you want to use the money from there. And if so, there's several spots on downstream that I, really feel like we should still do anyway. But I didn't know what how much funds you had extra to put in it. I know y'all had put some aside for the piping anyway, because it was going to have to be addressed, and we can't pay for it if you use pipes. We can't pay for any of it. I can size it for you, but that's it. So I thought it would be best to start with a picture, because on the plans, if you haven't done stream restoration, it don't make a whole lot of sense. But the yellow hash marks, and then all the hash marks on the left-hand side, they're bank full benches, and I thought it would help just to show what that's going to actually look like on the ground. So here's one before it went in. Here's one where we graded it. Now this is a 5-foot bench, and on y'all's I'll blow it up, but y'all have this is an urban curve bench, a rural curve bench, but since y'all are urban, you'll have the rural curve bench, and then you'll have another bench for your urban flash floods. So instead of a 5-foot flat one, you'll have 3 foot, and then I'll step up about a 1/2 foot, and then you'll have another 2-foot bench, and then I'll slope back into the existing contours. And this is what it looks like once it's matted and live staked. Another thing to mention is they are not allowed for the contract period to mow for, I can start at the front of the bench and measure out, and so it'll be at the top of slope, but 10 foot from the front of the bench back, they're not allowed to mow like their grass. It has to be left, you know, with some denser vegetation to be paid for by cost share. So I don't know, you know, if would be willing to do that. If you want to do it and just not get cost share for it, they can mow it. But if you use the cost share money, that's something to think about. They cannot mow within or spray and kill the vegetation within that 10 foot. They can, you know, keep it maintained, you know, 6 inches, about 10, 12 inches. We can do native grasses, but they can't mow it like a lawn. So, with that being said, let me pull up
Steve, did you have a question?
plans.
And Ms. Safer, remind the board
Yes.
what the contract period is.
You've got a year from, they just renewed all of them. So a year from, I think it was last month, to install it. And once you pick out, I've already done all the designs, once you pick out which sections you want, I can have my part ready to go Tuesday, but we'll have to get everybody's signature before I can submit it for permits. So.
All right, so Steve.
Be an education on what is the cost share for, what is that, please?
Well, it started, we do it for farmers. We pay 75% of practices that, you know, retain soil and help improve the environment. And about 10 years ago, we started doing it for community cost share too. And basically, if you're, you know, reducing erosion, fixing an erosion problem, daylighting a stream, we can pay you 75%. On stream restoration, it's 75% of actual cost, but there's a cap, and I'm pretty sure y'all's is $25,000. That was the max cap. So we'll cost share, and then we provide the design and then the construction oversight in that. And that's,
So is the homeowner paying the cost share or the town paying the cost share?
I imagine the town would be, because that was the way it was set up for the parts down at the bottom.
Okay.
And then this is, you know,
Is that the part that's highlighted in yellow?
the yellow is those benches, and where I scroll in right here, this is that first bench I was talking about, and it's 3 foot wide, and then you go a foot just for that 1/2 foot of elevation jump, and then I'll have another 2 foot bench, and then this line is where I tie back into the existing ground. And just for the landowners to know, it's everywhere through there. A few places I'm a little over, but I'm about 25 foot from the road edge into their yard that I'll be taking up with what you just saw.
And the homeowner has to okay this, is that correct?
If you want to use cost share money. And if we daylight the stream, I have to submit for 401 and 404 permits, and every landowner has to sign a agent authorization form that basically gives me permission to apply for permits on their behalf.
Okay, basically, they're gonna lose about 5 feet of their yard. Is that-
Probably, well, the people that already have the stream open, they'll lose about 10 more foot. But these people, it's piped. So I don't know if anybody's rode out there, but right here is where a yard inlet is at in this house.
Yeah.
So I'll be about, let me measure it. I think that's 5 feet. 7 foot. So I'll be 7 foot on more in their yard from that yard inlet. And they're used to having it flat out to the road, and it won't. It'll look like a stream channel like the pictures I showed you before.
What about, water mains and, water services and sewer service?
And that is, well, you got a pipe there that's a 36-inch pipe on this side.
Yeah.
And I won't be going lower than that. So I shouldn't hit anything on the left-hand side. Now, the right-hand side, when we get to it, if I will probably hit some hydrants if they're all, I know we had talked about that one being right below the surface. If they're all right below the surface, then the lines to the hydrants will need to be lowered. If
So that's an extra cost on the city.
if you want to do the right-hand side, but we'll go over that in just a minute, what's got to happen there. But on the left-hand side, I shouldn't hit anything because you have a 36-inch pipe running through there now, and I'm not going to go any lower than what that pipe is. Well, I need to go 5/10 lower, but I don't anticipate hitting anything additional in that 5/10. But everywhere where the yellow is to right here to 215 is currently in a pipe. Then 401, their driveway is in that pipe too. And it comes out there, the stream is daylighted on their property, or 403, once it crosses under their driveway. But then 403, 405, and 407, all their driveway culverts are 24-inch culverts. So unless we tear up their driveways and do all of theirs too, you know, even changing, if you change the pipes, there's really no reason to do it unless you do it all the way down, because the smaller pipe size is gonna restrict everything. So, but the 36-inch, as we mentioned the other time, you got, let me see. I can only pass the 2-year storm through those driveway culverts just because there's not enough head between the bottom of the channel and the elevation of the road to get big enough pipes in there to pass more than the 2-year storm. Now I can put in, since we're pulling out all of the driveways, either way, if you put the pipes in, or if you open up the stream, we've got to take all the driveways out. If you do a 25-foot weir section, which this line right here is 25 foot. So basically it would be a dip down in their concrete driveway, just a foot down, and it would be a gentle slope. I mean, you'd feel it. It'd be like a speed hump reversed, basically. And that would pass all the 25-year storm event between it and the 36-inch pipe would pass your 25-year storm event if you want to do that in all the driveways. It's really whatever storm events y'all want to pass.
I'm worried if you lower the ditch in 403 to 409, 12 more inches, you're gonna run into problems with sewer lines and water lines.
I need to drop the, okay, I can leave everything where it's at now, but I wouldn't be able to seal it because I have to have a foot of cover over a 36-inch pipe to meet standards. Right now, y'all, the pipes that do have 36 inches, all your pipes basically down through there do not have that amount of cover. And you can go back with that. It won't pass quite as much flow without the foot of head over it. But, you know, then I wouldn't have to lower it at all. I do need to lower it just 6 inches to get the 36 inches.
Still probably gonna hit it,
Okay.
I would think.
Do you know where they're at?
I do not on the left side, because all you're gonna get on the left side are your services.
Mm-hmm.
You need your taps and your services. I know where the main line is on the right-hand side. We
Yeah.
know where it's at.
Yeah.
Joe, is the sewer line going down that street, is it? where
Sewer
is it?
line, center of the road.
Yeah.
Center of the road, you don't know how deep it is, do you?
I do not.
That's something we need to investigate before we do
Yeah.
anything.
I shouldn't get into this. Well, we can have 811 come out and mark stuff and then find out, you know, how deep stuff
You
is.
need to find out.
Randy could tell me real quick what the depth is over there.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we can get the depths.
It's not very deep.
The other consideration there too is when we open it up, sewer laterals coming from those houses, are we gonna be exposing them? Because you've already got one sewer lateral that comes out down there just below the property you're showing right now, I believe.
It's the last house on the left.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's in this
Oh, but-
corner.
Well, I said, yeah, it is the last house.
Isn't it this one? There's a
Yes.
sewer lateral showing right there. That's those pipes right there.
Correct. So my concern, I guess, is if we open all of this up that's already covered,
They had to run the sewer laterals below the 36-inch culvert.
correct.
Right.
So unless they're just within half a foot of the culvert,
I think
and two, I can put the culverts right where they are now, and we know we won't hit anything, but you can't use cost share money on it, and I can't seal it because you won't have the foot of cover over the 36-inch pipe.
Right.
Or we can do a 24-inch pipe, which will
Raise it.
won't pass the 2-year storm, but then, or do 24 inches, which that'll get you maybe the 5-year storm, and then do a rear section.
I think anything we need to do needs to be 10-year storm or above. I mean, that's kind of a typical standard of other municipalities, and that's what we need to be doing.
So I'll have to do rear sections in the driveways to get you the 10-year storm. I'll have to. There's just,
And what driveways in particular would need those? The ones with 24 inch that require greater than the 36-inch?
yeah,
culvert or
all
rear?
of them on the left-hand side require that. I mean, they'll have to be, 2 36 inches will pass it for the channel to not build up sediment. You have to put one pipe, the 36-inch in, the first one on the bed of the channel, and then you raise the next one up half a foot, and that keeps your main flow through the just one pipe. That way you don't get sediment buildup that keeps backing up. It keeps it moving fast enough to move the sediment through, that you get off the roads and, you know, through the other channels leading to it. So you won't quite pass the 10-year storm with that, but I could do just a little dip in the driveway and get you to pass the 10-year storm. If you want to do that, or I can just do larger weir sections in the concrete driveways. But anything over, you know, your 5-year storm, they're going to have water running across their driveway. But I mean, they have water running in the whole street now. So, I mean, it won't be deep. I mean, it'll be like 8/10. I think it was 8/10 deep during the 25-year storm event. So, I mean, that's just.
Yeah, I think our goal is to keep water from flooding the streets and from flooding adjacent properties. Have we considered any type of impact that putting box culverts in at those driveways would be? I have no idea from a cost differential.
I don't know. I can look that up and see, because I had thought about it first, bridging them that way, but you know, I can check on the box culverts and see what the costs would be, because that would, you know, I could most likely pass your 10-year storm with a box culvert, but it's going to be a lot more expensive per each driveway.
Yeah, I understand. My thing that I'm looking at is we're already asking these residents to give up a portion of their yard. I don't want to have to ask them to also give up, to basically have to put a dip in their driveway.
Gotcha.
I can see that being
That brings up a good point. In all of this discussion over all these years that we've been pounding away on this, has any attempt been made to bring all the homeowners into a room somewhere or get on board with this to let them know what we're trying to do with their property? I
Yeah,
can
that's a
tell you
great
now that
question.
there are gonna be a lot of people squawking, that they're gonna be taking more of their yard, and this is going to be a PR nightmare. And I think, the sooner, if we haven't done so, then we sure as heck need to, make an attempt, so that all of these people can buy in, we can put the proper 36-inch pipes in, and so that we can resolve this situation once and for all. The 2 new lots and the 2 new houses that they've put in there, there's a torrent of water that comes off of that hill and is adding even more, since there's no vegetation to prevent water from coming down that hill. So I can guarantee you, if we go anything less than 36, we might as well just take the money and set it out there in a pile and burn it, because it would be a waste.
So Sam, I think you bring up a point that I was also going to bring up in a little bit. And I think we absolutely need to get those property owners together for a meeting. And the reason why is because if we're going to go around asking each of them to sign off on this, they need to, we need to make sure we're doing our due diligence up front to make sure that we're educating them on what this project is about, what the benefits are going to see, and then, what they would potentially have to give up in terms of front yard, to help avoid the flooding that they've been dealing with for years. So I absolutely, and I think that meeting needs to happen in one form or fashion sooner rather than later.
Best interest, Cindy, the plan that she's come up with, if you've ever driven by there in a torrent of rain, you'll, a lot of these homes, especially on that upper end, around the low 200s, I mean, they're below grade. And the water is pouring down their front yard and washing away everything, not just in the ditch or in the pipes. So I think the sooner we can get them on board and agreeing on what we're trying to do, the better, so that we don't have to go back and reinvent the wheel every time we sit down at this thing.
Agreed.
I know
So Peter,
everyone. Go ahead.
I was going to ask Peter and Joel, is that something that you can begin working to help pull together, is a meeting of those property owners? And I think we need Cindy to present, but then I'd love to have an opportunity as well, just to kind of talk about some of the logistics of it and what the benefits of doing this would be. But we need their input.
And I think when we talked the last time, this very topic came up, and it's certainly the next thing we need to do. We were waiting on this update so that we can now have some information. But yes, absolutely, we've got to engage the community in this and make sure everybody understands where we're headed.
I agree, but we also need to pinpoint what area you're gonna be going in to know what homeowners we're targeting.
And
That makes sense, because the original plan was to do everything below the homeowner.
and all of those homeowners were involved up front, and they went before we went to get the money, and they were all on board. But they already have all open channels, most of them, and we would just be replacing driveway culverts and taking 5 or 10 more foot of their yard, which isn't a big deal to them. It's already eroding and looking bad. But these have never, because we didn't bring up till the last meeting about opening up the channel. So we were just, if y'all were gonna do something, put in another pipe, another 36 inches, which still won't carry, even the 5-year storm event. But since it was just gonna be additional pipe, we, hadn't went to them, because other than construction, it wouldn't really affect them that much. It'd be right back, like it was, but.
I mean, we only have, what, 25,000?
Yeah, from us, and that's what, I don't know how much y'all have set out, and I did get a bid from a rough bid from a concrete guy. and he estimated tearing up the concrete and forming up and pour the concrete back about 3,000 per driveway. So every driveway we tear up, you're looking at $3,000 to put it back, and then the cost of the pipe, and then, you know, the channel work. And when we get to the left-hand side, or the right-hand side, there's a good bit of work that needs to be done there too, which will be, you know, tearing up those driveways. I don't know, I guess I can go through it all, and then y'all can kind of talk about what money you have and which sections you want to do, so that we know, like you said, which landowners to get in contact with, and then I can check on the box culvert prices to see if that's going to be feasible at all. Other than that,
My opinion is the public input though needs to be happening now as we're going through this process. Because what I don't want to get to is the board saying, this is what we're going to do, and us telling them and expecting them all to buy off on it at that point in time.
And what
You
I
know,
found helpful, and when I have done some streams through neighborhoods, I go out and mark it in the field. Like I'll mark where I'm going to tie back in their yard, and then I paint out with you know, marking tape where the benches are located, so that they can see in their yard where it's going to come to on them, not just, you know, me telling them how many feet. And then when they see the pictures of the bench, they'll know where those painted lines are. That's what it'll look like.
And weren't you planning on putting some heavy vegetation in there to anchor those berms?
I can do native, like, grasses. I've done a lot in neighborhoods just because of, you know, if it's on a farm, we do trees and bushes, but I can get away with just really heavy vegetation. But like I said, they won't be able to mow it like they mow their yard.
Yeah.
It will have to stay
Well,
a
I
foot.
think if
Can
we
they
approach
cut it off?
Hmm?
Can they cut it off? I mean, can they trim it
With
up?
a weed eater, they can trim it up. You know, they can't, we want them to leave it 8 inches to a foot. I don't think any lawnmower will raise the blade up
No,
that
I
high.
understand
So
that, but you don't want it too high.
yeah. I mean, they can maintain it, but you can't make it scalp it like a yard, 2 or 3 inches. It has to be pretty dense vegetation.
So do you have to
And
have
for the
buy-in?
board, that's an important point that we'll just need to make sure that code enforcement's aware of, that we're not
Getting them in trouble, yeah.
that we're not citing them for that particular issue.
You don't want to use our money for it. Like, if you want to use our money on downstream where it's wooded anyway, and y'all pay for this out of y'all's pocket, then, you know, it'll hold even with shorter grass. Just with our policies and standards, we're not allowed to let you mow it for 10 years. But it'll hold with shorter grass, but it'll be hard to mow it anyway. I mean, it'll be real hard
So
to mow.
remind me again, the total amount you said that CCAP can provide is 25,000. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So my thought for the board's consideration is we're going to spend 25,000 easily downstream. Those downstream improvements need to happen so that anything that's upstream that we're talking about right here, really what we're talking about is the town funding that. And I think what we need, the next step is we need to get once we decide what direction we are thinking we're heading, is obviously get the public input, making sure that we're educating them, but then also getting an accurate cost estimate for all of that rehab work. We do have funding sources. Again, we've got now over $1 million. Half of that we've received just recently for our COVID relief funding, the ARP funding. So, and it can be used for water, sewer, and stormwater infrastructure. The other thing to keep in mind is the federal infrastructure bill, that there could be money coming down from that as well. So I think there are funding sources out there, but until we know exactly how much this is going to cost, it's tough for us to determine where that funding comes from.
Do we have to have buy-in from every single individual, I mean, what if somebody holds out? What if somebody says, no, heck no?
Well, we'll be out of y'all's easement, I'm pretty sure. So, and for the 404 permits, which even if you don't use our money, I still have to get 404 permits and 401 permits, and I have to have their sign off on to submit for permits for them. So, yeah, all of them have to sign off on it.
Homeowner would have
If
to sign
not,
it.
we, can go back to as big a pipes as I can get in there. And like I said, if if I don't have to seal it, then I don't have to have that foot of cover over the 36-inch pipe, although I still would recommend it. I mean, that's what the manufacturers say you should have over it. But, I might could pass a little bit bigger storm events if I'm not trying to get the correct amount of fill over the pipes. But, I mean.
But we're still in the same situation, is that we're only making what amounts to be a minor improvement of the amount of flow it can pass for our, what's a
6-inch
whole lot of
pipe
money,
somewhere.
right?
Yeah.
What ends up being a whole lot of money.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So if we're gonna do it, we need to do it right.
Can I ask a question? Now I'm assuming that all this water is gonna be channeled into Grants Creek.
Yes, that down,
Eventually.
yeah.
Oh, okay, so, and I know the project that you're speaking about is way below that, and is way below the pond. But what impact is it gonna have on the force of the water going towards Grants Creek?
Well, in the bigger storm events, you're still getting all that water. It's just coming down the roadway. But by the time it gets down there to the end, it's making its way back into the creek. Anyway, you're still getting it. You're just not getting it all in one spot, channelized. But when we do the design of the channel, that's why we have the different benches, so that your higher velocities stay in the center, and out toward your edges, the velocity is a lot slower, and that keeps it from eating up your banks and stuff. So you're still going to be getting the same amount of water. It's just all going to be
You'll still have the same
it's gonna
amount
be
of water, but you won't be able
channeled
to water ski down the.
instead of going down the road and coming in.
The other thing, Mr. Bish, the other benefit that this project provides is this, we all know sedimentation is a big issue in this area, and the Adkin in particular, Grants Creek. This project, if we do it as we're planning to, will actually help to reduce that sedimentation, because what you're going to be doing is you've got now additional vegetation that's going to filter out some of that, as well as reducing those velocities, so you're not scouring out those banks nearly as much as you were before. So you can drive down there during some of those big rains, and you can just see the amount of sediment and dirt that is washing out of those yards and out of those banks and across the road. This project should help minimize that.
this is the, basically the long profile. So basically I went down the ditch from right here starts 202, which is right there in the bend when you start coming around, which you can look on your plan. I've got it. Actually, it starts at 206. I'm sorry. This right here is 206. I'll turn the, these are the culverts, and then I'll turn them back off because it gets hard to see. But here's your 206 culvert, your 208, and your 2010. All right, what happens here? This line right here, which this was sent to you electronically. This is the existing ground. These right here, your top line is your road. Your plus sign line is your existing ground, and you can see right here, your existing ground and your culverts are inches below the top of road. So there's no way all that flow is, even in the 1 year storm event, it's coming out into the road and into their yards, just like y'all said. Here is a proposed ditch line and culverts that will work, but for 206 through 210, if I leave the line here, I still don't have enough head to put a pipe in there to pass the 10-year storm. So they would all have to have basically a weir section or a channel through their driveway. Otherwise, it's going to come out into the road still. I mean, it can get into the ditches on down the road once we start getting some, you know, some head that we can get over the pipes. But I did look, I can drop it down slope wise to get a pipe in there to pass it, but I didn't have survey data for those driveways. So if you want to do that, I'll have to go back and get a little bit of survey data to see how far up the driveway it will be before I can tie back in to their existing driveway, because I'll be dropping down about 2 foot, 2.5 foot that I'll need to drop down from where it is now to get a pipe in. So, then after that, once you get to 402, which is, there's the 212, the 402, they don't have a driveway culvert. That's where they have that, gravel driveway, and they've got that busted up concrete culvert that's buried now. But if I drop it down, see your existing grade, it's all high here. None of the water can get down. And 208, their pipe outlet is lower than the pipe inlet for 210. I mean, it's a mess down through there. It's just a mess. But all down through here, I can switch them out. I've got enough room and enough head to switch them out to pipes that will carry the 10-year storm through the 404 and down through our new house lots, the 408 and 410. And the culvert sizes I gave them was to pass the 25-year storm event, but we can, their first lot, the 408 can pass the 25-year storm event without doing a dip in their driveway, but the lower one cannot. So if we don't make anybody else do it, it probably wouldn't be fair to make them pass. I can pass the 10-year storm with them without putting a dip in their driveway, but because of that extra, there's a additional drainage area that comes in after 408 to 410 that bumps them up, and it gets really flat. I looked downstream to see if I could drop this channel more to get, you know, a bigger pipe in to pass it, but I can't. There's just not enough slope to have even downstream. So I can go back and look. I'm pretty sure I can get their 10-year storm through just a pipe. But that's, you know, I went and added while I was waiting to do number 2, which is 206 to 212. You're probably looking at about $15,000 And we hadn't talked about doing that at all. And I didn't really, I mean, I knew it looked like the water wasn't getting in there, but I didn't know how bad it was until I plotted out the Long Pro. So, I mean, it's all really how much money, how much money you want to spend. And then if you don't want to do dips in anybody's driveway, then I'll have to get a little bit more survey data on these people's to see, you know, when I drop it down 2 more foot, I'm probably going to go back into their driveway a lot more than the other people's to tie back in at a, you know, respectable slope that they'd want to drive up. So,
Now, where you start at 207, the beginning of the line, you're picking up flows from coming off Salisbury Avenue
yes.
behind these properties here, right? Behind 203, 205.
Yep.
Are they getting affected? They're getting affected also, aren't they? There's no ditch. There's no.
You've got water
drain.
coming from everywhere.
There's
You've
no
got water
drain
coming
there,
down from
correct?
Jackson Street. You've got water coming down from Salisbury Avenue, down
Yeah.
from the embankment.
I can show you the drainage area if you want right here, but there is an open channel that comes right here and comes between 207 and 205. And it
Yeah,
enters
yeah.
your culvert.
And that goes straight up to Salisbury Avenue.
But all of them have open channels. What your problem is your road's so low, and there's just not, it's so much water, there's not enough room to get big enough pipes in there. On up, I mean, I don't know if they're having problems, but anywhere where they've got the open ditches and stuff, or it's a good amount of slope, they shouldn't be having the problems. It's because you're so flat through here, you're getting all the water.
Yeah.
I mean, and then the road's low. So I just don't have enough, there's not a lot of room to keep
Yeah.
it from getting out into the road.
And just keep in mind, farther up, what you're talking about, Bob, where Cindy's showing, that's City of Salisbury.
Oh, is it?
So,
Oh.
yeah, so where her
Yeah.
cursor was, that's all City of Salisbury.
Okay.
Right.
So if you don't want, I can pull up the drainage area if y'all.
Yeah, part of
Actually,
their,
you have
part of that drainage area extends into Salisbury. And so, yeah, my thought is we can only control what we can control.
And in the middle of 17?
Yes.
No, it's up just a little bit, but I think that one house on the corner is right at is pretty close to the dividing line there. Might need to pull up GIS to take a look.
From Rowan Avenue back, the first house on the corner is Spencer, and then the
Right.
house before it is Spencer. The
And
other
that's
three
it.
the other 3 houses on that side are all in Salisbury. And then
Can we put a
it
giant sump pump in there and shoot it back into Salisbury?
and from that corner, then it goes to half the street to Salisbury Avenue is Salisbury, and then the other half of the street, if you notice, there's a paving line in there.
Yeah.
Like, we paved half of it, the other half belongs to Salisbury. It's kind of a weird corner right there. It's a little strange, but yeah, you're getting all of that water, all of Beauregard Pickett water, and then, you know, just
Right,
Street-
207,
street
isn't that
water,
that where they,
period.
where they built that little tiny house on the corner? Is that on Rowan?
Rowan, yes, sir.
That's on Rowan, but,
Uh-huh.
so that's Salisbury House. That's
No, that's Spencer House.
That's the
Come
little
across-
tiny one with the little
Right,
statue. in
come
front, right?
across Rowan on this side.
Okay,
I can't remember what the lady's name lived right there.
I got you.
It's got the red roof on the house. That one on the corner, and then the one before it is in Spencer. We service those 2 houses with garbage service. The other 3 are Salisbury.
Okay.
I'm gonna show you, I can show you the drainage area if you
But yeah, it
want,
gets,
but it really don't. I mean,
So
they're not.
there are a couple things we need from the board tonight. One of them is we need some direction from Ms. Seyfried on what level of service we want to provide for the design. Do we want the 25-year or do we want the 10-year or do we want something less? My recommendation, based on everything I've seen, would be that we do similar to other municipalities, and that for this particular project, we would adopt the 10-year storm is the design storm. I think it has some challenges to try and get to that level. But I think it's doable. The 25-year, I think, is going to provide a little bit of a difficult challenge for us that we might not be able to do. And just to kind of remind the board of what those storm designations mean, it's the recurrence interval at which they're expected to happen. And so a 1-year storm, there's 100% chance in any given year that you're going to see that level of storm. A 2-year storm is basically saying that there is a 50% chance in any given year that you're going to see that level of storm. A 5-year storm would be there's a 20% chance in any given year that you're going to see that. A 10-year storm is that there's a 10% chance in any given year you're going to experience that. And then, of course, you go out to 25, and that's a 4% chance in any given year. And then the 100-year storm would be there's a 1% chance in any given year that you're going to experience that level of storm and flooding.
And then another point, which I like to tell the homeowners, you know, when we're designing it, because they hear it's designed for the 10-year storm, and there's different time limits for like a 10-year, you know, 1-hour storm event where you get all the rainfall within an hour. I'm designing, your standard design is for a 10-year, 24-hour storm event, which means you get like the 7 inches of rain over a 25-hour period. If they get that 7 inches of rain in an hour, it's still going to overtop their driveways and get out in the road because it's not designed for that hard of it. So it's a 10-year, 24-hour storm event. So any storm event they get higher than that, they shouldn't have failure of anything, but it will overtop and get out in the road at that point probably. So that's something to tell them too. So just so you know, because a lot of times they'll hear it was a 10-year storm event. Well, if it was a 10-year 1-hour storm event, it's not designed for that.
And for those on the left-hand side, the road is higher than the level of the base of the house, right?
Do what now?
The road is higher than the houses at that point. In other words, if water's sitting on top of the road on 17th Street, these houses on the left-hand side, they're gonna get water in them. If it tops those drains, they're gonna get water.
If they're
into
not
those
getting
houses.
water in their house now, then I didn't, all of these houses are high. They will not. Now, 206, 208, and 210, I didn't really look at them all that well. I didn't know they were gonna need so much work until I did the Long Pro. So, but if they're not getting water now when it overtops, everything I'm doing will make it even better. There'll be even less water, but it won't, if they're not getting water in it now, they won't get water in it with anything I'm doing.
Yeah, those houses are a little bit higher up.
Yeah, all the left side and all the ones we had attention, or we're gonna start at like 402, maybe do a little shaping right up here, but start at 402, and all of those houses are way high enough. But like I said, the 406 and 408 and 410, if y'all want to work there, which, I mean, it's, unless I drop it down 2 foot, almost any storm event, much at all, is gonna get in the road. I mean, it can get in the ditches on down here, but unless I drop the grade, it's gonna get.
So yeah, and my thought is we've got to do something there, Cindy, because that's a huge contributor to part of the reason we have water in the road. It's not just on the left side. And so, you know, our goal is we're trying to reduce water going across the road and water that is inundating people's yards. Bob, to your point, I don't know, unless Joel has received any citizen complaints, I don't know that there's been any structural flooding on those houses, but I do know several of those yards, they get completely flooded. Yeah.
Most of the houses through there their elevation is higher than the road. The house itself, the front yard dips. So the water collects in the front and then it keeps moving down. So I haven't heard of any of them going into the houses. But like when we had the hurricane, we got those, you know, a day full of nothing but solid rain. Water was well in their front yards. And then it gets there and then it stops up those drains. Well, then the water's this deep and I can't get out there to unstop the drain. But it doesn't matter because the pipes are already full. they're full from upstream. It doesn't really matter what you're gonna do at that point. They're not gonna take any
The
more
other
water.
issue I think we've got there is we've got several driveway culverts and any pipes that are already in the ground there. I'm concerned, if you notice, there's several very small culverts under those driveways. And there's several that are completely collapsed. Joel, I don't know if you've noticed that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and
So
that's,
to me, that needs to be a focus of this project as well. If we're gonna fix part of it, we need to fix it all.
Well, that was one of my questions. I can do it, but drop it down and handle the 2-year storm through there, and I think get culverts that'll pass it if I can drop it down about 2 foot. But I know in between these houses, I got 2 hydrants at least. I may have 3. I'm not sure if that's a hydrant or a power pole that he didn't label them for me, but I know that's a hydrant.
I think there's only
So,
two.
huh? 2.
I think there's only
Okay,
two.
so
Yeah,
one
there's
must be
only
a
2.
power pole.
And
So-
they put in another one, because I remember that.
I think there's 2, and then one at the new houses down there.
If I drop it down 2 foot, I'm likely to hit a good little bit of stuff and have to move
A whole lot of stuff.
a whole lot of stuff. So that was one thing. That's why I didn't know if you wanted me to do dips in their driveways there. I can do dips in 206 through 210's driveways and pass the storm, the 10-year storm, and not have to drop it down so low. I still need to drop it down a foot from about a foot from where it is now, which,
Up on the high side, we might can get that.
okay.
But down in that creek bottom, we know where it's at.
Yeah.
You're not gonna get that
Yeah.
at all.
So I think one of the things, Joel, that we need to do is get with SRU and their GIS to get the inventory and elevations on the SRU utilities, because right now we're just speculating where that stuff is. And so what we need to do is know for sure, based on what the elevations that they have are. Then we can go from there with utility locates. But it does sound like, if we do it right, we're probably going to have to do some type of utility relocation. And that's a conversation that we might need to have with SRU about
We're
that.
working-
I just don't want to halfway do something to say that we've done something and it not alleviate the problem like we wanted to. It's a whole lot of money and a whole lot of effort and a whole lot of time to not get the result that we want.
You'll pay 75% of what it's gonna cost you and not pass all your storms, but the 10-year storm is doable. The 25-year storm, it's not doable without putting dips in everybody's
And
driveway.
that's my question back to the board is we need to provide some guidance to Ms. Seyfried and to our staff of what level of storm we want to design to for this project. And also so that we can then communicate that with our educational sessions with the citizens there and homeowners in that area. So my recommendation would be for a 10-year design storm, but I'm open for comments and feedback from the group.
How do you feel, Joel?
I agree with the 10-year storm.
Yeah.
I think the 25, from what the numbers we've done, especially with the new houses over there,
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm not gonna say it's not doable, because it is doable, but it's gonna get really expensive really fast for a 25. I mean, utilities are not even gonna be a question at the 25. The 10, I think, is very doable, and I think it would be a major improvement over what we have. Just my opinion.
And like I said, nothing will fail with the 25-year storm, but it will get out into the road and it will overtop driveways
So
and stuff like
this,
that.
this piece of paper here that says 153,500 for total job, not counting.
That was my rough estimate, and that wasn't counting 2 because I hadn't went through and done it yet. But if you add, I put about 15,000 for it. That's if I only have to take out about a 25-foot section of their driveway. If I've got to take out more driveway to tie back in, dropping them down, then it'll be a little bit more than that. But I have to get some more survey data. I didn't get enough survey data of their driveways.
So at this point, we're talking $200,000 and
That's-
25,000 of it coming from you all. It's 175,000 from us.
Mm-hmm.
Out of $500,000 that we've got coming from the, ARP that we already have, that's a small drop in the bucket.
I just
I would
didn't know how
agree.
much
I would put a disclaimer on that, Ms. Sledge. I would say the costs are probably going to be a little higher than that. So we just need to plan for that.
Well,
Yeah,
and that's
well,
not moving
if we
any
can get 'em.
utilities.
Right.
So, you know,
And then material prices going up.
Yeah.
But it is
If we
my
can get 'em.
opinion that we, with the ARP money, that we will be able to fund this project without having to, and have money left over for other needs that the town has for that ARP money.
Yeah, I think we need to use that money responsibly, but we need to be sure that we're doing a service for all the people of this community in this town. And, you know, this street goes back, there is a connection there to the Standback Forest, right?
Yes, ma'am.
yeah.
So, I mean,
Very
you
good.
know, I think we have some responsibility
Right,
to
here's
be
the
good
pond.
stewards.
Right, right down here, is the pond. It's right in this area,
Mhm.
right in there. And,
The crossing is just below that. Do you have that pipe that goes under?
yeah, right here, this pipe, is the one you're talking
Yes, ma'am.
about? Yep.
That's it. That's the trailhead, where the
Right.
trail comes out Spencer Avenue.
Right,
That's where she's pointing right there. It's
Yeah.
where that pipe goes underneath, which is needing, it's gonna have to be replaced as well.
right.
So, but that's a different funding source. We can work around that one. The question I have, just throwing it out there, as far as direction, you want her to continue to work on this? And then the 25 CCAP that we have a time constraint on. Do you want to go with the original plan to widen the lower part? I think that's my question.
That would be my recommendation to the board. Since we're only talking about $25,000, we need to move on that.
Agreed. And we got a time constraint on it. We need to get moving, and she's already got the plan. She's got everything.
Yeah,
You can pretty much
we're
get
ready.
started to
Yeah,
construction on it. And then
Joel, I would say it's my opinion, we have a time constraint on all of it. It's just one relates to funding sources, and the other relates to, bettering the drainage for our citizens.
I agree.
Well-
But the first part is gonna depict the next part.
We said,
Right.
you widening what, Joe?
Sir?
You said you were widening what?
Right. Lower, from basically Pickett Avenue to the crossing down at the bottom.
Yeah.
In that area, they're gonna widen, or she's gonna widen the ditch to accept more water.
Okay.
So basically it's more like a reservoir. That way the
Yep.
water doesn't stop upstream. It keeps coming until it fills that up. So
Right.
that's kind of a relief.
Right.
And then that part, as you do on up the road, will just build upon that. You know, the water will get to that point faster, but it keeps it out of the road. So it's kind of like building blocks. So
Yeah.
this part is not gonna hinder what we're gonna do later. It's just the fact that we can move on with this because we already have the permission. We already have the landowners. Everything's fine and it's ready to go. So we can see some progress.
Now, you
Is
know
what
you're
I'm
talking
saying.
about a narrow 2-lane road now.
Yes. Yeah,
but
but the ditch is gonna actually widen
On the other side.
yeah.
to the other side.
See,
It'll be
right
benched
here's
on the other side.
Okay.
I put on the aerial so you could kind of see which houses and lots were, but if I can take it off if you can't see, but right here is Pickett, right there. And so right in here is your stream, and it hugs up against the bank. So all my work will be to the left-hand side. And the same is true as well down here. I'm going to be coming into these property owners about 25 to 30 feet with the benches and where I tie back into existing grade. And all of the work there will look like the pictures that I showed you in the beginning. That's what those hash marks are, those benches. And I don't know, I think you said you own maybe down here. These are all empty lots.
Right.
Yeah,
Mr.
right.
Bish is all the way
Right
up at
above where
10th
that
Street.
circle is there, round.
They're up at,
Yeah.
he's at the intersection of 10th, the last
Oh, okay.
lot on the corner. So
Okay.
you're actually on higher ground.
Yeah.
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 I think the Lowe's
You
is
actually
like,
will feed this, but the work will not be done on your side.
Right.
So we can see a little.
But there's actually, wasn't it just 2 landowners? Or 3?
Well, there was 3 right through
3
there.
right through there.
And then this one is the one that lives by the pond, which I thought maybe they were gonna sell at some point and y'all were gonna buy it. I don't know if y'all have yet.
I don't know.
But we talked to them in the street when we were out there surveying, and they gave approval to theirs. I need to come back into their yard more because this pipe is on a horrible angle. And so I need to realign the stream here a little bit and put in a structure to get it into that pipe. And I need extra area here to make that curve. They have a lot of, I don't know what kind of trees they are, but they gave us permission to, dig them up and replant them, knowing that they might lose some of them when we do that. But, but to do this, then, I'll have to submit 2 different permit applications for the 401 and 404 to go ahead and move forward with this one. So it'll cost, it's $570, to submit the applications. So that would be 2 times that you would have to pay that if I split it up. But I think your linear foot wise, you might get kicked into 2 anyway. They only let you go so many linear feet before they make you do 2 anyway. But to do this, and all I would need is the landowner's signatures in the areas that we're gonna work. So if we wanted to meet with them and get those signatures, then I'm ready to submit those for permits as soon as we get the signatures.
So my recommendation to the board would be that you consider moving this forward for this particular portion to use the CCAP funds and get that underway. And then we'll continue to refine the upper portion of 17th Street because we definitely need to move that forward and can identify, we need to know cost on that and where we'll use the funding source. But my opinion is we need to get moving on at least some of this to show that we're making progress in the area. And so I guess what Ms. Seyfert would need tonight and Joel would be a motion from the board and approval to move forward with this particular portion of the CCAP project and to apply for those permits.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we do proceed on this behalf of Ms. Seyfert and go ahead and do this work.
I second.
All right, there's a motion and there's a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. All right, all opposed? All right, that is unanimous. And so Ms. Seyfert, you have our direction to move forward and go ahead and apply for those permits and move forward with that particular portion.
Well, I guess, Joel, are you gonna set up the meeting with the landowners? Are we gonna meet and show them separate from the other people? What we're proposing and get, cause I've gotta have their signatures before I can, and y'all's, which I included a copy in one of the submittals of the agent form, but I'll have to have that signed from y'all too. And they're electronic submittals, and basically I'll send y'all an email when I submit it, and at that point y'all need to mail the check to DWR, and I'll give you the address and everything, but you'll need to mail the $570 check to them when I submit the plans. But somebody will need to get all the landowners together.
Well, since we've already discussed this with them once before.
Well, we hadn't these empty lot people. Well, I don't know that they all came to the meeting.
Okay.
I know all of the people up here, the 409, 417, the 404 to 410, they were at the meeting and they're all on board. They're very affected by it.
Okay.
But down here on these empty lots, I don't know.
I don't know on the empty lots.
I don't know that they know, but
Now,
I
the lot
still
at the
gotta have them.
creek, that was just given to us, correct? Or no? I'll
Which
have
one?
to check. I'll
Which
have
one,
to
Jay?
check with Kyle on that. The one right at right after the creek before the sewer right away.
It will be. I don't know that it's actually, the land transfer has not happened. That, I believe, the land trust,
So it's gonna
the
be.
land trust owns that right now, is my understanding. You need to check with Joe Morris on that.
Okay, I will, but I'll find out what those are and then what we need to do, Cindy, whether we just
Okay.
need to go talk to them individually or get them together as a group.
Okay.
And we'll figure it out.
Okay, and I guess this upper portion, I know you said wanting to get a true cost estimate from a contractor. I mean, I have several that'll come and bid jobs for me, but I hate to abuse them. If, I don't know what to do first. I mean, if the landowners aren't gonna sign on board for this, I almost hate to, waste their time getting them to bid all of this work and the box culverts or whatever culverts we gotta do if the landowners aren't gonna like it. So I don't know if before we get a cost, if I can design it to the 10-year storm, get their approval, and then get a cost on it, if that would be all right.
Yeah, I think what we need is we need to go ahead and we need to provide you with direction tonight. And I really need the board to make a motion, what design level of storm we want it designed to. And then knowing that, then you can know what we're looking at, if it's 10 years, something different, and refine your design to achieve that. And looking at, the box culvert, those sorts of things we need to go ahead and look into now. To see if there's a huge cost differential, if it's 3 times as much as having to put a standard concrete culvert in, then that might be a non-starter. But if it's something that's, if it's 50% more, then it's probably something we certainly need to look at if it's going to be able to achieve that design storm. So we need you to look into that, I think. But then what I need our town staff to do is to work on getting a meeting with these property owners set up to describe the project to them, what we're proposing, what it will, the benefits that it will provide, and then any impacts to their properties that they would need to be aware of. Because I do want to go ahead and get them on board as soon as we can to make sure, because you're right. If they're not going to sign off on it, then from the 401, 404 permitting perspective, then we're going to have to drop back and consider other alternatives.
It's already piped. If we just pull out the pipe, put it back in a bigger pipe, and put in an extra pipe, I don't think I have to get their sign off on that. Now, we still will be in their yard as far as y'all's easement putting in another pipe, but if you're covering it back up, then, I don't think they should care. I mean, they'll lose their driveway for a couple days, but other than that, it won't affect them much at all if we go back with all pipes.
Right. And I think we need to provide both options to them as we discuss that, but let them know what the limitations of going all pipe is going to be. It's not going to solve their issue.
Can't pass the 10-year storm. There's
Right.
not enough elevation. There's not enough head over the pipes and enough drop downstream to lower the pipes down to pass the 10-year storm in pipes.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to allow Engineer Seyfried to proceed with designing this project for a 10-year water event.
All right. So 10-year, 24-hour storm to clarify, Mr. Morgan.
Yes.
Okay. So there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second by Ms. Sledge. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. All opposed? All right. That is approved unanimously. Thank you all. Okay. And then Peter and Joel, I assume that you will begin to coordinate and work to get some type of public input scheduled.
Well, I can
Yes,
send
sir.
you.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm getting
I'll
that address.
send you all of these people,
Okay.
207 to 407 will be opening up the channel. But the people I need to submit the permits are right around here, and I can send you all their
I would say, yeah, if you
information.
don't mind
Yeah,
sending
I
me
can
those
send them to
addresses.
you.
Okay,
Because
very
we
good.
need to meet with them first and
Absolutely.
now, and I'm ready to go with them.
Okay.
So,
All right,
all right.
we'll get it.
Okay.
Good, we're good.
All right. Anything else for Ms. Seyfried?
Thanks for
Yeah,
all the
thanks
work.
for coming
All
in.
right. Thank you so much. And board, thank you all for the good discussion and, trying to solve this problem for our residents. All right. With that, we've reached the end of our agenda for tonight. Is there any further business? All right. Is there any need for executive session this evening?
Personnel.
All right. There is a request. Is there official motion?
I move and we move into executive session.
All right. There's a motion by Mr. Bish. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Sledge. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. All opposed? All right. We are in closed session as of 7:16.